Tonight, roads, some crumbling, and bridges are breaking. And believe it or not, it's even worse than many of you may imagine. I'm going to talk with an expert who will explain how devastating this really is and what we need to do about it. And there is gridlock on the roads as well as gridlock in Congress. I got to tell you why Washington's dawdling is threatening to make the situation even more dangerous. And then talk about the odd couple. Bill de Blasio and Rudy Giuliani, not only agreeing on something, but teaming up to take down one of Governor Cuomo's big initiatives. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and today we're going to spend quite a bit of time on this program talking about something that makes our country tick. Now, I'm talking about infrastructure, roads, bridges, trains, even water. It is the stuff of life here, and according to a new report, our infrastructure it's even worse than you think. Now, the American Society of Civil Engineers, they came out with its 2013 report card. And America's infrastructure, it gets a D+. Now, when you dig deeper in the report here, you'll see that just about every category got lousy grades. And again, I'm talking about the roads, the rails, schools, planes, all getting poor marks across the board. And fixing things, it will not come cheap. The report estimates that the country will need to spend $3.6 trillion, that's with a T, over the next 5 years. Now, it's gotten so bad that infrastructure has become a punchline even for the late night shows. Here's a clip from last week tonight with John Oliver.
As you know, infrastructure is not a sexy or glamorous topic.
As much as I like to think otherwise, infrastructure is not sexy.
Infrastructure is not very sexy.
Yes, infrastructure, like those men we just heard from, is important but not sexy. Although, to be fair, that may just be because Hollywood promotes unrealistic standards of infrastructure beauty. That's not what a real road looks like.
All right, let's bring in our panel right now. Patrick Natale's Executive Director Emeritus of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Dominic Carter, jacketless, political journalist and author. There's a story there. C. Scott Vanderhoff, an attorney and former Rockland County executive who knows the Tappan Zee Bridge better than even he wants to. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent, all join us. Thank you, gentlemen. Pat, let's start with you, and it's your report here. There's no way to put some shine on this thing. Our infrastructure is in bad shape. We've been putting it off for a long time. It's expensive. As the clip said, it's not sexy, but it's starting to have some real consequences from a safety standpoint to an economic standpoint. We can't keep putting this thing off, can we?
No, we can't. And the problem is we keep delaying. We keep using a mentality of patch and pray and hoping we get by it. Defer maintenance. Wait for tomorrow. You wouldn't do that with your home. If your home had a leaky roof, you'd take care of it immediately. We don't do that with infrastructure. We say, let's stretch a little longer and let it happen. And the impact is going to impact our economy. It's going to impact jobs. But this risk to the public is out there, and we keep delaying and not taking action. The gridlock that was mentioned in the opening piece in Congress, we have a transportation bill. We keep deferring it, and putting simple fixes in that are just the patch and pray mentality.
You know, and I spent some time with the New Jersey legislature, and they have their own transportation fund, and where's the money for that? And they keep pushing it down the road. And they're starting to say, listen, it's not just a concern, which should be the first one, that we've seen bridges collapse. Go to Minnesota, talk to the folks there. You've seen literally people seeing girders coming, and they have to do patchwork on it to keep them operational. But it's more than that. Now you're starting to see bottlenecks as a consequence, and this isn't the American legacy. I mean, we used to be ahead of this stuff. We're falling back, and potentially we could fall back even worse, right?
Well, how much money are we wasting sitting in traffic? We're wasting a lot of money in gasoline each year just sitting there burning it.
If you could, explain when we say we're showing a bridge on the report card from New York, structurally deficient bridges at about 12%. What's a structurally deficient bridge?
Structurally deficient bridge is a bridge that needs either maintenance, repair, rehabilitation, or replacement. Gee, Tappan Zee Bridge and a lot of other bridges. But it's about, they're not ready to fall. It's not that danger, but if we continue to delay the maintenance on it, we're at risk. A functional obsolete bridge is a bridge that doesn't have the capacity to carry the wide loads of trucks today, and it can't carry the heavy loads of vehicles today. So it's restricted. You've seen bridges where it has limitations on it. More and more bridges are putting that in to protect the public. So engineers are trying to be in front to maintain that in a way to make the public safe. but you can't keep doing that forever. We need to invest in our future.
And guys, 60 Minutes recently did a segment on this, highlighting just how acute this problem has become. Here's a portion of it.
One of these arch bridges actually has a structure built under it to catch falling deck. See that structure underneath it? They actually built that to catch into the falling concrete so it wouldn't hit traffic underneath it.
That's amazing.
It all comes down to funding. Right now, they can't keep up with it. 300 bridges become structurally deficient each year in the state of Pennsylvania.
And that's just Pennsylvania. And if you want a historical aspect to this, this isn't the way it used to be. Past presidents here, Republican, Democrat, I mean, think about what Eisenhower did with the highways across this country. Think about the TVA that you saw as it related to FDR. And Andrew, we've had historians on this program talking about this in the past. We got ahead of the world. Now we've fallen back to 7th in the world, and there's projections here we could fall back to 14th or 15th if the trends continue. Beyond the economics and the safety, this wasn't America, right? This is how we really leapfrogged in the old world in many ways.
I think one of the misconceptions that people have about infrastructure today is that it's just a personal convenience. If the bridge doesn't work, I have to find a different route to get to where I'm going. But when we built the interstate highway system, that opened up the doors for national commerce and provided a skeleton for the economy of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s to be built on. Go back to the 30s, to the Depression era, and some of the projects like the TVA, which was able to open up new parts of the country for development and turn them into economic beneficiaries. It really is the framework upon which the entire economy has been built, and that leapt us, or put us in the front of the line, made us the economic superpower that we were and that we continue to be. The problem is the rest of the world is catching up, and we're falling behind. It's what the rest of the world is doing is one thing, but are we prepared to maintain the level of economic energy that we have today, and how does this position us for tomorrow?
And Scott, put a face in this as a county exec, because everybody cries poverty. Washington cries poverty. Yeah, as a county exec, don't look to Albany for too much help on a lot of these things. But it's not just the bridge, right? We're talking about roads. We're talking, we were mentioned before, pipes. And what, I mean, go through the litany here on stuff that was built sometimes a century ago that you're still relying on now.
Oh, sure. Subways, water mains, all sorts of treatment facilities, roads, bridges. I briefly served as co-chairman of the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, which includes Nassau, Suffolk, all of New York City, Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland County. All federal
Lucky
funds.
You.
Well, fortunately, I didn't have much power. I was simply one vote. But all federal funds flow through there. And what's really interesting about this as a discussion topic is the Northeast is not building new things. They're trying to replace things and maintain them. And they don't have enough money. And in Congress, the fight is the Northeast, which is just trying to get all of these things, the subways, the bridges, what have you, back to good repair, whereas with the Midwest, where the population has shifted and where now Congress has more power, is interested in building brand new roads, because that is sexy. You know, they open up the ribbon cutting there, the politicians get credit. So one of the interesting things about de Blasio and the Boston mayor and the New York City mayor, and most of us in New York City, is we're fighting to put money into things you can't see. It's not new. There's no, you know, the subway's got to be fixed. Tappan Zee Bridge, just fix it already. But the fact of the matter is we are fighting a national battle here in the Northeast, which is uncommon and the first time ever. And all these infrastructures which have been aging and which now need tremendous amount of investment, people don't get as excited, I'd say people, Congress, as they do with a brand new road out to someplace, as opposed to rail, water, treatment facilities, and the other things. So we are fighting a major battle. So when we talk about this fight in the Congress, it's not just people being reluctant to do things. We're talking about investment in maintenance and good condition for our infrastructure in the Northeast.
Talk about some of how old we're talking about, Pat, because I mean, I was surprised at some of the structures that when they were built and what we're still maintaining them on. I mean, and we mentioned it's not just the road and it's not just the bridge, it goes far beyond that.
Well, you look at pipes underneath the ground. I think Scott's point was great. You have pipes that are there that are providing water and removing wastewater. They're 100 years old. Now, in many cases, they're doing fine, but in some cases, they're in serious problems. We're losing a lot of water out of the system. Now, is that causing any damage? Well, no, not directly, but we're wasting good, clean drinking water. And that's going to be a problem down the road. The other problem, though, is as it's leaking, you may have a problem where the pipe collapses, the road collapses, and the power line comes down. So infrastructure is interactive. When one fails, multiple things fail. If the power system goes down, your water treatment plant doesn't work. So you can't provide good, clean drinking water to people. So we need to be looking at it holistically and coming up with a solution. And the 3.6 trillion that was mentioned, there was some money there already through the trust fund, through local taxes and other vehicles. The question is, how are we filling the gap?
You know, just for me, Don, what I've never understood about this one was, it's like motherhood and apple pie. It may not be sexy, but if you're talking about building a bridge, or you're talking about fixing the roads, you're talking about whatever else, you're putting people to work. It's bricks and mortar. I always thought politically this was an easier sell than a lot of other things that they try and do, because people still got to get to work, people still got to take the train, people still got to get across the bridge, or whatever the case may be. There's been more bottleneck on this, and I understand why, because I figure, hey, pass it on to the next guy, we can use these roads for another 3 years and let the next governor or whatever take care of it. That all said, I'm still surprised how hard it is to get this thing through.
Let me ask you a question. What's one of the top rules for elected officials, any elected official?
Make the trains run on time.
No, get reelected.
Yeah.
and when you're talking about raising taxes to pay for stuff like this, that's a non-starter, a complete non-starter. When you want to, as an elected official, or it's mandated that you be tough on crime, what's the option? Repairing a bridge or making sure that there's enough jail space to lock people up? So in the day of one-shot revenues when it comes to budgeting, and at times declining revenue from Wall Street, something has to give. And so elected officials come forward. It doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, they put a Band-Aid approach to the infrastructure, and it seems like the only time we care is when something happens, God forbid, like it did in Minnesota.
He's right, absolutely right. And to give you an example, we had a regular schedule in Rockland County for all bridges and all roads. They were on a schedule to be repaired or replaced in accordance with the schedule. But we put in, invested in the $32 million project, which is one piece of road, one of the busiest roads. It's not just the road, it's not the pavement, it's all the underground electric facilities, it's all the Verizon lines, it's all the various lines that no one ever sees and knows about. And that disrupted traffic, and it took 10 years to get it approved, much less. So you can imagine, if you're only running every 3 or 4 years, it takes a lot of push to get these projects, which do not, all people really see is, well, I got a new turning lane here. But it changed that whole section, for example, in New City as a result of one project that if you look at everything, it probably took 15 years to do and to complete. And yet it's critical. The critical elements of what's under that roadway, the water and the stuff.
I have a stupid question. One of the frustrations for everybody is they don't want the construction happening when they're coming home from work or going to work. How impossible is it to do the work in the overnights? To do the work from 10 p.m., let's say, to 5 a.m. or something. I mean, I'm sorry, guys, if you're having to do the road work yourself, but if you did it in that window of time to cause less dislocation, to be less frustration on the part of the public, is that a non-starter?
No, they do it in the thruway all the time. We did it on New Hampstead Road for a lot of places, but the problem, of course, is once you've done your construction for that day, you can move the lights, but you got to move them into an area which is an easement or the next lane. You have to move all the trucks, you have to move everything out of the way, and you end up with a single lane anyway in most cases, especially for 2-lane highways. So it's not as if you have free access. Plus, you got potholes, you got macadam issues, you got all those other things that have to be done. And people get very impatient with that. They get madder, that they can't move as quickly sometimes. When you say to them, but the infrastructure has to be done. It has to be done, and it's hard.
And Richard, remember, you got to pay for that. That happens all across America where they work overnight. But it's part of the contract. It's an incentive to work faster, and the taxpayer has to pay for that.
All right. We're going to have a broader conversation on this side of the break about where we go from here. Now, it is our topic of the question when it comes to the question of the day here. And I want you to head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off. And Dominic hit it just there. Would you be willing to pay higher taxes if it meant to fund infrastructure projects? And trust me, these aren't these optional varieties. We have hit that breaking point. We got to do these things. Are you going to complain if you got to dig in your pocket to help make them realities? All right, and here's a still life photo of the day. It's a rendition of the new Tappan Zee Bridge. Believe it or not, it's actually happening. Work continues on the $4 billion project connecting Tarrytown, New York, and Nyack. How we're paying for it, that's for another day. The new span, it will have 8 towers that are each 42 stories tall, and again, it's slated to open in 2018. All right, when we come back, when President Obama visited the Tappan Zee last year, he outlined what we can do to fix our infrastructure problems and what will happen if we don't do a thing. We're going to check back in and see whether Congress has actually done anything in the fight. Stay with us.